A Greek god, Poseidon, emerges from a river and transforms into his human form. He walks across a bridge and heads to the top of a skyscraper to meet his brother, Zeus. When they meet, Zeus tells Poseidon to look up at the sky and describe what he sees. Poseidon notes the thick thunderclouds, but Zeus points out that there's no lightning, his master bolt has been stolen. Stunned, Poseidon asks if Zeus suspects him. Before Zeus can answer, Poseidon reminds him that the gods are forbidden from stealing each other's powers. But Zeus says their children aren't bound by that rule and implies Poseidon's son may be involved. Poseidon insists he hasn't seen his son since he was a baby. Still, Zeus warns that if Poseidon's son did take the bolt, he'll be killed for it. Angrily, Poseidon warns Zeus not to start something that could lead to an all-out war between them. Zeus gives him a deadline: the master bolt must be returned within 14 days, by midnight on the summer solstice. Or he'll declare war. The next day, a boy named Percy is seen sitting calmly at the bottom of a swimming pool. After several minutes, he surfaces. His best friend, Grover, is amazed and asks how he managed to stay underwater for so long. Percy simply says he doesn't know, it just feels natural. The water, he explains, is the only place where he can think clearly. Shortly after, the two boys head to their English class, which is being taught by a new substitute teacher named Mrs. Dodds. As the students file into the room, Mrs. Dodds greets them and introduces herself. She writes a quote from a book on the board and asks if anyone can explain its meaning. Although Percy doesn't raise his hand, Mrs. Dodds seems unusually interested in him and calls on him to interpret the quote. Percy looks at the board but struggles, he's dyslexic and can't make out the words properly. Rather than waste time or guess, he simply tells her he doesn't know the answer. After school, Percy returns to the apartment he shares with his mother, Sally, and his unpleasant stepfather, Gabe. Percy expresses concern that his dyslexia might be getting worse. When Sally asks why he thinks that, he explains he's having more difficulty with reading and wonders if it's related to his ADHD. Sally looks saddened but reassures him that things will improve in time. Suddenly, Gabe walks into the living room and rudely orders Sally to fetch him a beer. She complies without question, but Percy can't understand why his mother puts up with Gabe's bad behavior. He's a rude, smelly drunk. When Percy voices this frustration, Gabe warns him not to speak about him that way. Disgusted but silent, Percy doesn't argue further. The next day, Percy and his classmates go on a field trip to a Greek museum. As Percy is about to enter the building, he hears a mysterious voice warning him to be prepared, because everything in his life is about to change. Confused, Percy turns around and catches a glimpse of Poseidon in human form. But just as quickly, the man vanishes. Believing it must be a hallucination, Percy brushes it off and heads into the museum. Inside, his teacher, Mr. Brunner, begins a lesson for the students about the three powerful Greek brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. He explains how they once united to overthrow their father, cutting him into pieces, but ever since then, the brothers have lived in conflict and rivalry. Brunner also tells the class that, long ago, the gods used to walk the earth and sometimes formed relationships with mortals. From those unions, children were born, children known as demigods. Percy, distracted by music playing through his headphones, barely pays attention. But when Brunner directly asks what these children are called, Percy eventually replies, demigods. Brunner nods and asks if Percy knows the name of any demigod. Percy, unsure, shakes his head. Brunner then hints that there's one demigod with something in common with Percy. Perplexed, Percy glances at the wall behind Brunner and suddenly notices something strange. The Greek inscriptions begin shifting into English before his eyes. He spots the name Perseus and recalls that Perseus is the name of a demigod. He quickly shares this with Brunner, who confirms he's right. Just then, another teacher, Mrs. Dodds, steps in and says she needs to speak with Percy alone. They walk to a secluded area of the museum, but then Dodds suddenly vanishes. Percy looks around, confused. Moments later, she reappears, now standing high above on a platform. Percy is stunned by how she got up there so fast. Then, Dodds accuses Percy of stealing the Master Bolt and demands to know where he's hidden it. Percy, completely baffled, tries to make sense of what's happening. But before he can react, Dodds transforms into a terrifying monster and lunges at him. Just as Percy is about to be attacked, Mr. Brunner and Grover burst into the room, shouting at the creature to back off and leave Percy alone. Brunner warns the creature to leave immediately or face destruction. At that moment, the monster drops Percy and flees through a window. Percy is stunned and unsure if what just happened was even real. Then, he hears Brunner and Grover referring to the creature as a fury. Brunner mutters that he should have known they'd come after Percy, though Percy remains confused. Brunner asks Percy what the fury wanted. Percy recalls that she mentioned a stolen master bolt. He quickly defends himself, insisting he didn't steal anything, but Brunner already knows he's innocent. Without wasting time, he instructs Grover to take Percy to a special camp where he'll be safe before more monsters arrive. Still lost in confusion, Percy listens as Brunner hands him what appears to be a simple pen, calling it a powerful weapon to use in times of trouble. Percy, puzzled, doesn't see how a pen could help, but Brunner ignores his doubts and tells Grover to notify Sally and make sure Percy is protected. After leaving the museum, Percy asks Grover what's really going on and why his best friend is suddenly acting like his bodyguard. Grover reveals that he's actually Percy's protector and has been watching over him all along to ensure his safety. Percy finds it hard to believe, especially since Grover walks with crutches, but Grover assures him that appearances can be deceiving. When they arrive home, Grover urges Sally to leave immediately. However, Gabe, Sally's abusive husband, says she can't leave as she's still serving his guests. Percy loses his temper and insults Gabe, who quickly retaliates. Before Gabe can hurt Percy, Grover knocks him down using his crutches and tells Sally they must go now. As they rush toward the camp, Percy still doesn't understand any of this and insists he never stole the master bolt. Sally says she believes him and explains that the camp is for special people. When Percy wonders if he's going crazy, Sally reassures him he's not, he's simply special because of his father. Percy seems uninterested, he's always believed his father abandoned them. But Sally gently tells him about how she met his father, adding that he never wanted to leave but was forced to. Suddenly, a minotaur appears on the road and crashes into their car. They survive the accident, but Percy is stunned when Grover removes his pants to reveal goat legs. He's a satyr, a half-goat creature. Grover admits the crutches were just a disguise to hide his true identity. They flee into the forest and soon reach the entrance to the camp. However, Sally can't go through the gate. She explains she's not like Percy and therefore can't enter. Percy refuses to leave her behind, but before they can act, the Minotaur seizes Sally and crushes her. She suddenly vanishes. Devastated and unsure what to do, Percy remembers the pen Brunner gave him. He clicks it, and it transforms into a sword. Percy attacks the monster but is quickly thrown off and loses his weapon. As the Minotaur starts to weaken, Percy finds the strength to defeat it, but the effort overwhelms him and he collapses in Grover's arms. When Percy awakens, he finds himself in an infirmary. Grover is by his side and tells him they've safely made it to camp. Percy is asked if he remembers anything from the previous night, but he only recalls having a wild dream. Grover quickly corrects him, it wasn't a dream. Percy looks downcast, realizing this means his mother is truly gone. Grover apologizes and blames himself for failing to protect Sally. He explains that he's only a junior protector and hasn't even grown his horns yet. Percy reassures Grover not to blame himself. As they leave the infirmary, Grover begins showing Percy around the camp. Along the way, he tells Percy the truth. He's a demigod. Percy is stunned, but Grover clarifies that Percy isn't actually dyslexic, his brain is wired to read ancient Greek. Percy then realizes that's why he could read the Greek text in the museum. Grover also explains that Percy's ADHD isn't a disorder, it actually makes him more alert in battle. Percy is surprised, he always thought he was just a freak. Grover insists he's not. As they walk toward the training ground, they spot a skilled girl sparring fiercely. Percy seems intrigued and asks who she is. Grover tells him her name is Annabeth, daughter of Athena, and one of the camp's best fighters. Later, Grover introduces Percy to some centaurs, one of whom is Mr. Brunner, Percy's former teacher. Percy is stunned to see Brunner's true form, half man, half horse. Brunner apologizes for hiding his identity and says there's something important he wants to show Percy. They arrive at a special cabin, where Brunner explains that Percy's father wants him to stay there. As Percy looks around, he sees a trident symbol and realizes his father is Poseidon. Brunner confirms it, noting how rare it is for the three powerful brothers Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades to have children on Earth. Brunner warns that Percy is now a threat to his uncles, as there's long-standing hatred among the brothers. He also reveals that Gabe's terrible body odor had actually protected Percy by keeping monsters away, but it eventually lost its effect. Percy is shocked, realizing his mother endured Gabe's abuse just to keep him safe. The thought leaves him heartbroken, feeling helpless for not being able to save her. As they leave the cabin, Percy asks why he was brought to the camp. Brunner tells him he must retrieve the stolen Master Bolt and prevent an all-out war. Percy insists this isn't his problem, but Brunner warns that a war among the gods could destroy the Earth. Percy asks what he can possibly do. Brunner says he'll take Percy to Olympus to speak with Zeus and prove he didn't steal the bolt. Percy wants to leave immediately, but Brunner explains he must train first. Monsters will surely try to stop them. Soon after, Brunner takes Percy to the training area and introduces him to the other campers. He mentions that Percy will need a team. Luke, the camp leader and son of Hermes, warmly welcomes Percy and invites him to join his group. Finally, Brunner announces a game of Capture the Flag. 2 teams will compete, and the team that captures the opponent's flag first will be declared the winner. During the Team Capture the Flag game, Annabeth is revealed to be on the opposing team and quickly heads out with her squad to hide their flag. As the match begins, Luke tells Percy to stick with him, and Percy follows his lead. They soon engage in a skirmish with some of Annabeth's teammates. Luke manages to defeat them and instructs Percy to continue the search for the enemy flag. Percy, unsure where to look, wanders through the woods. Eventually, he stumbles upon the flag, completely unguarded. Thinking he's lucky, Percy reaches out to grab it, but Annabeth suddenly steps out from her hiding spot. She declares that she won't let him take it so easily and reminds him that she always wins the game. Percy laughs it off and jokes about being a loser, but without warning, Annabeth strikes him with her sword, injuring his hand. Shocked, Percy hadn't expected her to actually fight him. Annabeth continues her attack, and despite Percy's best efforts, he's clearly outmatched. Watching the fight unfold, Grover urges Mr. Brunner to stop it, but Brunner insists they wait. Beaten and on the ground, Percy hears a voice, Poseidon's, telling him to go to the water. As he does, the water begins to heal his injuries, leaving everyone stunned. Reinvigorated, Percy rises and takes on Annabeth's teammates, defeating them with ease. When Annabeth comes at him, Percy manages to overpower her and disarm her by taking her sword. Rather than hurting her, Percy walks past and captures the enemy flag, securing victory for his team. That night, while the campers celebrate the win, Annabeth approaches Percy and asks if he's starting to feel like a hero. Percy says he doesn't think so, but Annabeth teasingly warns that he might develop a big ego after this. Percy suspects she doesn't like him, but she says she hasn't decided yet. Suddenly, a burst of fire erupts in the camp and from it, Hades appears. He demands to speak with Percy. The campers are frozen in fear. When no one answers, Hades begins setting parts of the camp ablaze. He repeats his demand and warns Percy to bring him the lightning bolt if he ever wants to see his mother again. Shocked, Percy wants answers. Though Brunner tries to stop him, Percy steps forward to face Hades. The god reveals that Percy's mother, Sally, isn't dead. He only ordered the Minotaur to take her. Hades even shows Percy a vision of her, proving she's alive. He tells Percy to bring him the Master Bolt in exchange for her freedom. After Hades vanishes, Percy insists he has to leave immediately, but Brunner warns that he has nothing to bargain with after all. Percy isn't the one who stole the bolt. Still, Percy can't bear the thought of leaving his mom behind. Brunner advises him to follow the plan and speak to Zeus first. Later that night, Percy quietly packs his belongings and attempts to leave the camp unnoticed. But Grover catches him and insists on coming along, reminding Percy that he's his protector. Percy tries to convince Grover to stay behind, but Annabeth shows up too, insisting on joining him. Percy is hesitant at first, but Annabeth argues that he'll need her experience, as she's already won many battles. Percy eventually agrees to let both of them come along. However, when they ask if he knows how to find Hades, Percy admits he hasn't figured that out yet. Annabeth then suggests they talk to Luke, thinking he might know how to reach the underworld since his father is the only god known to enter and leave it alive. When they meet Luke, they ask if he can help them get to the underworld through his father. Luke replies that he's never even met his dad, just like most demigods. He explains that the gods have always been selfish and only care about themselves. Luke goes on to say that he once broke into his father's house and found a pair of flying shoes that could help Percy on his journey. Percy thanks him, and Luke tells him to check inside the shoebox for a map. When Percy finds it, Luke explains that the map reveals the locations of 3 pearls belonging to Persephone, Hades' wife. These pearls are the only way to escape the underworld, and Persephone secretly uses them to help her guests escape. Grover asks how they're supposed to use the pearls, and Luke tells them to simply step on them and visualize where they want to go. Grateful for the help, Percy thanks Luke again. Before they leave, Luke kindly offers Percy a shield for protection during the quest. Percy, Grover, and Annabeth then head to the location of the first pearl, an old, abandoned restaurant filled with statues. While exploring, Annabeth spots a fountain containing golden drachmas, the currency of the underworld. She gives some to Percy, and they decide to split up to search for the pearl. As Annabeth searches, a mysterious woman appears and frantically begs her for help, claiming someone is after her. Confused but concerned, Annabeth follows her. Meanwhile, Grover sees a statue that looks exactly like his late uncle and jokingly comments on how lifelike it appears. But soon, he realizes it looks too real. Remembering how his uncle died, Grover realizes they're in the lair of Medusa, a cursed goddess. He panics and races to find Percy and Annabeth. Eventually, he runs into Percy and warns him they're in Medusa's lair. The two quickly begin searching for Annabeth. Unfortunately, Annabeth and the old woman run right into Medusa as they attempt to escape. Medusa expresses excitement at having Athena's daughter in her home, explaining that she sometimes gets bored with just her statues. When Annabeth asks how she knows who she is, Medusa says she can sense it. She even compliments Annabeth's hair, lamenting that she used to have beautiful hair too until Athena cursed her. Before Annabeth can defend her mother, Medusa removes her scarf, revealing her head of writhing snakes. She then takes off her sunglasses and demands they look at her. Annabeth quickly shuts her eyes and warns the old woman to do the same, knowing that direct eye contact with Medusa will turn them into stone. Medusa continues coaxing them to open their eyes. The old woman, unable to keep hers shut any longer, looks and instantly turns to stone, still holding Annabeth's hand. Just then, Grover and Percy arrive and spot Medusa. Knowing they can't look at her directly, Percy tells Grover they'll have to use the metal surface of his phone to see her reflection. As Medusa tries to force Annabeth to open her eyes, Percy urges her to keep them tightly closed. Medusa hears him and realizes there's another demigod nearby. As she scans the area, Percy quietly hides near a statue. But Medusa senses him and ominously states that she knows he's the son of Poseidon. Medusa, who despises Poseidon, angrily knocks over statues in her lair, causing one to fall on Percy and trap him. Meanwhile, Grover tells Annabeth it's safe to open her eyes so they can help Percy. Medusa then grabs Percy and threatens to force his eyes open with her snake hair. Just before she can, Annabeth and Grover crash a truck into the lair, hitting Medusa. Furious, Medusa spots Percy's phone on the ground. As she gazes at her reflection in the screen, Percy sneaks up behind her and decapitates her. He tells his friends it's now safe to look. Seeing her severed head, Annabeth suggests they keep it, as her gaze can still turn people to stone. Percy agrees and wraps it in Grover's sweater. While searching the lair, Percy finds one of Persephone's pearls in Medusa's jewelry and takes it. The trio then sets off for the next pearl, located in a museum in Nashville. On the road, Grover dozes off while driving, forcing them to stop at a motel. Later, Percy reflects alone in the motel pool when Annabeth joins him. He heals a bruise on her hand using his powers. As they talk about their parents, Annabeth reveals she's never met her mother, Athena. Percy questions why the gods avoid their children, and Annabeth explains it's due to a law from Zeus banning divine contact. The rule was made after Poseidon repeatedly tried to reach Percy. Grover interrupts them to show a news report. Percy's stepfather, Gabe, is blaming Percy for his mother's disappearance, even suggesting he kidnapped her. Realizing they could soon be arrested, Percy urges them to leave immediately. While packing, Grover reveals Medusa's head in the bathroom, accidentally scaring a cleaner. Knowing the police might be called, they flee to Nashville. At the museum, they spot the second pearl atop a crown on Athena's statue. They decide to wait until CLO. Sing to retrieve it. When night falls, they emerge from their hiding spot and head for the pearl, but museum cleaners are still inside. Annabeth tranquilizes them, and Percy uses magical flying shoes after calling Luke for instructions to retrieve the pearl. Before they can leave, the cleaners, now possessed, confront them and demand the Master Bolt. When Percy says he doesn't have it, they transform into the Hydra, a multi-headed monster with fire-breathing heads. Percy fights it, but cutting the heads only makes things worse, as they grow back in twos. Annabeth distracts the beast so Percy can retrieve the pearl. Eventually, he draws water from the restroom to fend off the creature, and Grover uses Medusa's head to turn the Hydra into stone. They leave the museum and stop at a restaurant, where they see news of a growing storm cloud, signs the gods are preparing for war. The next pearl is in the Lotus Casino in Las Vegas. Inside, they're served lotus flowers that make them forget their mission and enjoy the games. Percy hears Poseidon's voice reminding him of their purpose. Snapping out of the trance, he gathers Annabeth and Grover. As the casino staff realize the kids have awakened, they attack, but the group fights back, grabs the pearl, and escapes in a display car. Outside, they see they've lost 5 days inside the casino and only have 1 day left before Zeus's deadline. The map leads them to Hollywood, where they find a portal into the underworld. They meet Sharon, the ferryman of souls, who at first refuses them passage since they're alive. Grover bribes him with golden drachmas from Medusa's lair, and they're taken to Hades' palace. As they enter, hellhounds nearly attack, but Persephone stops them and leads the kids to Hades. He demands the Master Bolt, but Percy says he doesn't have it, only that he wants to clear his name and rescue his mother. When Hades releases Sally from her cage, Percy hugs her and the Master Bolt suddenly falls out of his shield. Hades accuses Percy of lying, but Annabeth realizes Luke planted the bolt in Percy's shield to trick them. Hades doesn't care and orders Persephone to feed them to the underworld's tormented souls. But Persephone betrays him, takes the bolt, and knocks him down, saying she won't be trapped in a war with him. She gives the bolt to Percy and urges him to deliver it to Zeus before midnight. With only 3 pearls, Grover volunteers to stay behind. Percy, Sally, and Annabeth escape the underworld and reappear on a rooftop near Olympus. Just as they approach the gate, Luke appears and says he can't allow Percy to return the bolt. He reveals his plan to destroy Olympus and reshape the world with the next generation of demigods. Percy insists he's not a hero, which enrages Luke. He attacks, grabs the bolt, and flies using his winged shoes. Annabeth tries to retrieve it, but Luke dodges her and fires the bolt, missing. Percy dons his flying shoes and chases Luke, leading to a final battle atop a skyscraper. Luke mocks Percy, saying he's weak and possibly not even Poseidon's son. But before Luke can strike, Percy summons water from nearby tanks and uses it to overpower him. After the battle, Luke is left too weak to move. Percy retrieves the Master Bolt and reunites with Annabeth and his mother, Sally. Together, they head to Olympus by entering a special elevator. However, Sally reaches a point where she can no longer continue. She encourages Percy and Annabeth to go on without her. Meanwhile, Zeus is in a tense council meeting with other gods and goddesses. As the clock strikes midnight, he declares that war seems inevitable, and a heavy silence falls over the room. Just as he prepares to attack Poseidon, who is also present, Percy and Annabeth arrive and present the Master Bolt. Shocked, Zeus listens as Percy explains that he didn't steal it, it was Luke who took the bolt and tried to frame him. Impressed by Percy's bravery, Zeus praises him for recovering the bolt. Percy then pleads for Grover's release from the underworld. Zeus agrees and cancels the war. As the situation calms, Poseidon asks for a moment to speak with his son. Zeus permits it. Poseidon approaches Percy and apologizes for not being there for him. He explains that Zeus disapproved of him getting too close to mortals and shirking his divine duties. Still, he tells Percy he's always tried to guide him from afar. Percy responds, saying he's felt his father's presence at times. Poseidon assures him that he'll always be there if needed. They shake hands before Percy leaves with Sally. At the camp entrance, Sally tells Percy how happy she is that he's found his place in the world. Percy shares his relief that she's no longer with Gabe and promises to visit her often. After an emotional goodbye, Percy returns to camp and finds Grover, who excitedly shows off his newly grown horns. Soon, Percy runs into Mr. Brunner. Although the teacher scolds him for sneaking out of school without permission, he congratulates Percy for completing the quest. He also calls Percy his favorite student and reminds him to always trust his instincts. Brunner says training must continue, and Percy walks off to join Annabeth, ready to keep growing stronger together.